Hey, it's Michelle coming to you with some kitchen inspiration. I got my new taste buds packet and had this really great recipe in it. I'm super excited about it. Chicken and broccoli with mushroom truffle sauce. And it has in one of this test driving new spices, black truffle and herb. I love truffles. I'm super excited about making this tonight. One of the benefits of getting the taste buds is that sometimes you get seasonings that aren't available to purchase yet. So I'm going to make this recipe with you. So I'm using my 12-inch stainless nonstick skillet. I love this thing. And it's fabulous for recipes like this because it's so good to make pan gravy. Because that net in the bottom there has some you can see some stainless through it, and that's on purpose so that when you make meat in it, you can make really good pan gravy. It leaves a little bit of the meat stuck to the pan, and then you can scrape it off into the gravy. All right, so I'm going to heat up my pan, and then I'm going to get my chicken ready to go. All right, so there we go. I've got my chicken here. I'm going to grab my professional shears and just cut this bag open. This is defrosted, but it's not quite ready to go. All right. We put this away without trimming it first. So I'm going to trim off all the parts that we don't like to eat, which is all the parts that'll give you those chewy things when you are eating it. And so anything that's white is like fat or tendons, depending on where you're looking. And I just don't like those. They don't taste good. Also, you can see a vein right there. I'm going to cut that part out. So I just find that if you do this, it makes a huge difference in the taste of your chicken dish. So it's not a lot of waste. It's just a little bit, and I find that it really does make a big difference in what it tastes like. So it's up to you whether you do this or not. Oh, there's one more spot right there. I like to do this with a scissor. You can do it with a knife. I just think it's easier with a scissor. Okay, now I'm going to grab my fillet knife. And I'm actually going to fillet this because it's very large. I don't know what size, almost like a turkey, it's so big. So I got a couple nice pieces rather than that one gigantic piece. It's still a little bit fat right there, but that's okay. If I wanted to, I could even fillet it again, but the recipe doesn't call for that, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to season it up. Get all this chicken off my hands. And I'm going to use, the recipe says, I'm sorry, I have to read it, 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of this black truffle and herb seasoning, which of course I can't get open now because my hands are wet. So I'm going to have to use a scissor. I don't want to use that dirty scissor. So, that's always the way it works. Okay. Usually our seasonings come in bottles. Oh my gosh, I'm really having issues. And but when you get them in your taste buds, they come in this packet instead of in a bottle, which you can, when you rebuy them, you buy them in bottles. This one is not available for purchase yet. Oh, it smells terrific. All right, so I'm going to take 1 teaspoon. I'm going to sprinkle it over here. I'm going to flip these chickens and do the other teaspoon on the second side, so we get a nice even coating. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love the flavor of truffles. I don't know if you've ever had it, but when we were in Italy a couple of years ago, it was the first time I ever had truffle. And there's different kinds of truffle. Black truffle is the one you see most of the time. And we had it on pasta over there, and I was like, wow, this is good. It's a very expensive spice, so you don't see it just anywhere. Has to do with it growing underground, and you have to have special pigs or dogs that can sniff it out and dig it up for you. So it's really expensive. It's like $400 a pound or something. It's crazy. Okay, so the other thing I'm supposed to put on here is some black pepper. So I'm gonna put some black pepper. I'm only gonna do that on the one side because I don't want to flip it again. And then I'm gonna transfer this chicken to my pan, whoops, which is nice and hot now. And I'm going to remove this dirty cutting board from my countertop. And actually I got This is just water, but I'm gonna wipe it up anyway. Okay. All right. So while that's working, I'm gonna put a clean cutting board out, and I'm gonna start getting the rest of my recipe together. So I've got my, oops, that's not the right one, and my 5-inch Santoku knife, and I'm going to get this onion ready. And this onion is supposed to be finely diced. So you could use the food chopper if you want to do that. I didn't pull my food chopper out, so we're just gonna dice this by hand here in a second, as soon as I get it peeled off. Sorry, that chicken is loud. Maybe I need to turn it down a little. All right. So I'm gonna get this onion diced up. I love these knives. This is from my Forged Cutlery knife set, and they have a lifetime guarantee. This is my favorite one with the little divots in it, because you'll notice that the food doesn't stick to the knife. So it's terrific for when you're doing a lot of chopping. It's also really good for cheese, because the food doesn't stick to it, though I mainly use it for veggies and fruits. It's personal preference. And I always hold my fingers like this on the blade. Okay, so there's my onions. The recipe says cook it for 2 to 3 minutes on the first side, and then flip it over. Let me get my tongs out. I forgot to get those out. And a spatula, because we need those things. Okay, so while we're waiting on that, we're going to do the next thing. Is I'm going to grab my quick slice. It's like 11 knives at one time. And you can put a couple mushrooms on here at a time, depending on how big they are. Usually fit about 4 of them on there. Sometimes if they're small, you can fit more. Oops. Okay, that guy wants to run away, and slice up my mushrooms nice and evenly real fast without taking a chance of cutting yourself. This is great if you have little kids and they want to help in the kitchen, because they can like slice their own bananas and hard-boiled eggs and kiwis without you worrying about them hurting themselves, and they get to help. I always liked my kids to help in the kitchen when they were young. Makes them good eaters too. All right, it'll also slice strawberries. It does an excellent job on strawberries. And then it just goes in the dishwasher. All these parts come apart. And pull all the food out of there, and it goes right into the bottom rack of the dishwasher. Out of the way. All right, let's look over here and see how our chicken's doing. These are my chef's tongs. These are the big ones. They come in 2 sizes. Oh, that looks beautiful. I'm going to flip my chicken over. Might need a little bit more oil, because I actually spilled a little bit out of the pan. There's a puddle of oil here on the side when I picked it up earlier. So, all right, let's go back to this recipe and see what it says, since this is a brand new one. So as soon as I got my chicken, my mushroom. All right, so I have a small prep bowl here. This is my 3-cup prep bowl. They come in 3 different sizes. And I'm gonna mix a 1/4 cup of chicken broth with some cornstarch. So this is thickener for the recipe. By the way, I'm serving this recipe over rice just because my husband likes to have a little more bulk in his dinner, but you don't have to do that. It's up to you. I'm taking a 1/4 cup of chicken broth, putting it in here, and I'm mixing in 2 teaspoons. Put my 2 teaspoon setting of cornstarch. And I'm going to get my small, oops, I'm sorry, I realized that. I'm going to get my small stainless whisk. This is my tablespoon measuring thing. It has a 2 teaspoon measure. Mix that up and just put that to the side for a minute. My chicken looks like it's almost ready to be pulled out. It says to pull it out, and I will do that, and I'm going to cut it up and throw it back in. All right. We're going to put some butter in there, and then the onions. And we're going to brown up the onions before we add the mushrooms. And I just realized I need one more ingredient I didn't have out. This is some thyme. And let me grab a place to put this chicken on. All right, let's grab this chicken out of here. Looks good. Just going to set it to the side for a moment. And I'm gonna put my butter in my pan, which says lost my knife, my butter knife. Here it is. We're gonna leave that pan dirty because that's how you get the fond, which makes the really good gravy, okay? So we're gonna leave the pan dirty. We want the pan to be dirty, you know, have the chicken and all in there. All right, I'm just gonna transfer these onions in, but without transferring the mushrooms, because we only want the onions right now. Whoops. Put some onions in here. And we're gonna let them kind of pick that flavor up a little bit. And then I go back to my recipe again, which says we're gonna have to add the mushrooms in a minute. So I'm gonna start measuring my wine. I need 1/4 cup of white wine. And I didn't have any regular drinking wine in the house, so I'm just using this kind, which is fine. It's up to you. I like to use regular drinking wine, but when I keep this around for when we're out. I'm gonna put some wine in. All right, let's take a look at these onions. It's starting to smell good in here. And you want to kind of scrape the bottom of this pan. It's called deglazing. Okay. So I'm going to do some deglazing here. Because you want that fond, which is the chicken parts that's stuck to the bottom of the pan on the stainless parts, to go into your gravy. So you definitely want to kind of scrape the bottom of the pan. You know, don't use a big metal scraper in there because you don't want to wreck your pan. So you can use metal utensils in this pan, but it doesn't recommend that you actually like scrape the bottom with them. All right, so I'm going to put in my wine. And that says I'm going to put in a cup of chicken broth because I already used 1/4 cup in the thickener, right? So the recipe's called for one. I'm going to put that in, chicken broth. Then I'm going to add my mushrooms so they start working. And then there's a little note on the recipe that says if you want to have a little bit more depth of flavor, to add some thyme. So that's why I put some thyme in. Thyme is one of those things you don't want to put too much in, so I put about 1/4 teaspoon in. I could always add more, but it's generally better to have less because it's a strong flavor. All right, so we're gonna just kind of make sure these are getting nice and wet. And I turned my temperature back up a little bit because I want these to cook down a little. Mushrooms always taste better when they have soaked up the sauce. All right, let me go back to my recipe and see what it says. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab my broccoli. So I have a nice fresh head of broccoli here. And I'm going to go back to this Santoku knife. I'm going to cut this part off. Now, if you want to make your own veggie broth, you want to save this for that. Okay, you could put that in there. I'm not a fan of the stems of the broccoli in my food. I just like the florets, so that's completely up to you what you like to do. But like I said, you could take that, throw it in a freezer bag, and every time like if you peel carrots, put the carrot peels and the carrot ends in. I could put my actual ends of my onions in there. And once I get a whole gallon freezer bag full of veggie parts, then I can add some water and some salt and cook it on the stovetop and make a nice veggie broth for use in soups and other recipes. So that's a nice way to not waste food and to, get your money's worth out of it. Food's real expensive right now, so anything that you can do to save a little money on it is a good thing. You can do the same kind of thing if you have like bones, so chicken that you're maybe not necessarily going to eat the bones, right? You can throw them and make your own broth out of that too. All right, I'm just giving my mushrooms and onions a stir. They are boiling away over here, which is good. It's what I want them to do. I'm gonna move my broccoli over, and I'm gonna grab my chicken again. Because this to me is kind of an Asian style meal, I want my chicken cut up in small pieces. So I'm gonna get a fork. I'm going to use the same knife. We have lots of knives. You can use this, but this knife's already dirty. Why make more of a mess if I don't need to. This knife works perfectly fine. I know it's technically not a meat knife. Now my chicken was not cooked totally all the way through here. I had a feeling that was going to be the case, but that's okay because it's going back in there in the pan in the sauce. If you were not going to put it back in, you had to make sure it cooked all the way through, but I didn't worry about it because I knew it was going back in the pan, and I knew I was going to cut it up before I put it in the pan, which meant that it was going to have time to finish cooking. All right. I love these knives because you notice that I'm not doing any sawing when I'm cutting this chicken. I'm just pressing like kind of straight down with it, and it's cutting right through. Makes it very easy to cook with. Sharp knife is your friend in the kitchen. Yeah, this one's not cooked either. It's okay. I'm going to throw it all right in the pan, back into the pan. I'm actually going to throw this juice that came from the chicken back in the pan too, because I don't like to waste that. It's got a lot of flavor in it. All right, here we go. We're going to dump everything back into it as soon as I can get it all on the thing here. And I want to stir this up. I might wind up adding a little bit more wine and a little bit more broth to this because I like my food like this kind of saucy, so there's enough sauce for it to go on the rice and give the rice some nice flavor. So I'm just going to throw the lid on here. I'm going to let it cook for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to taste it. And I might add some more of that truffle seasoning and some more broth. But first I'm going to let the broccoli cook down a little bit because the broccoli may sauce it up enough that I don't have to do that. So I'm going to grab the lid that goes with this. Oops, that's not the lid that goes with this. It's so funny, I have so many lids. Sometimes I grab the wrong one. This is the lid. Drop that on there. Let it cook up a little bit, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me. Hope you guys have a great evening.